Welcome to the Rising Consciousness Show, 20 minutes of soulful insights and powerful tools to elevate your life experience and create with higher clarity, intention, and vision. I'm Tara Antler, intuitive healer and soul coach.
And I'm King Gabriel, spiritual teacher and practitioner. And we are the co-founders of Ascension Academy of Life,
a global center for spiritual growth, intuitive healing, and soul alignment.
Get ready to blast off.
All right. I'm so excited to be back to have another beautiful harmonizing conversation. And today's conversation is going to be a little different, a little bit more expansive in terms of taking the big leaps in our life, having courage, having faith, leading our life that way, and all the amazing things that get to happen as a result of it. Because sometimes we play a little small because we're sometimes scared. We're scared to play the big, and we're scared to take the big leaps of faith. And I am so excited to honor and welcome our amazing guest, Christina. It's Whiteley, right?
It's Whiteley. It's Whiteley. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Christina and I, we actually met through a mutual business container with Kelly Roach Coaching. And you know, when you sometimes see people, whether it be online or in person, you're like, I feel like I know this woman. I feel like I know this person. It feels like a total soul sister. And so I think we started chatting through there. And of course, she's a fellow Canadian. She's a freedom lover. And so there were all these beautiful intersecting pieces. She recently moved her family down to Mexico, and she is an entrepreneur. She is moving business in big ways, and she's going to dive deep into not being in the fear state that I think a lot of people are in right now around business and the economy and our life, that we can actually continue to live expansively and in a freedom state without all the other chaotic stuff that people are going through. So anything else you want to add to that, Christina, in terms of who you are and what you're up to in the world right now?
Oh my gosh, I love you already. You know, like here's the thing is that the internet is such an interesting place. And when you're a networker and you're into growth, you end up attracting these people into your life, or you put yourself in situations where people that you truly can connect with are. And so I am so grateful, Tara, that you and I became connected, because we are soul sisters. Like I know that for a fact, just from the moment meeting you. You know, I'm from a small town. I'm from like this little mill town on the BC coast at the top of the Sunshine Coast called Powell River. It's like 15,000 people were there when I grew up, and it was really, really isolated. You could only get there by ferry. So I was this small town girl that had a lot of expectations, like generational expectations that were set, that, you know, this is how we behave. This is what we do. This, you know, get good grades, go to university. I was like one of the first people to go to university in my family, you know, and then, you know, get a great job with healthcare and a pension and work out the rest of your days until you can happily retire. Except I wasn't made that way. That was my family. And I always grew up like, okay, get a good job so you can pay your bills, right? Yeah. To me, like, respectfully, that sounded like a death sentence. Like, I don't want to work 40 years and then live on a fixed income. Like, that's not I want to live, right? And so I did what a good girl did, and I went to university. Okay. I went to university for music because it was the only thing that I loved. And then I got there and it like stole the joy, like going to school for music actually stole the joy of performing for me. Although I knew that I wanted to be around people. I knew that I wanted to impact people. I knew I wanted to be a part of people's lives. And then I got into being a hairdresser. So I actually, I ended up owning my own salon and onsite wedding business. And I left it because it's like so crazy. I just like tried to pick pieces of my life. And the reason I'm telling you this is that I just like, what was the next right move for me? And I've been doing this my whole life, but I didn't realize, because so many people are so scared to make a move. They're like, oh my God, what if I make a move and it's a mistake? What if it's wrong? Your life is a chapter. If you make a mistake, move on to a different chapter or reevaluate and adjust, right? It's not really a big deal. So I went on to do hair. I did that for 11 years until I had a really bad shoulder injury. And I loved that industry because I got to know people very intimately. You know, I got to know a lot about them. And one of the greatest things that I loved about it was giving people confidence in that time, right? Like sitting and having conversations with them. But then like when they left with a good haircut or, you know, on their wedding day, if they, you know, when they see themselves in the mirror, I loved that. But I realized I couldn't do as much as I wanted to do. Like I couldn't have bigger like I could lose clients if I'm like, hey man, like you need to go see a counselor and like get rid of this guy, or like you need to go do that. Like, like I couldn't actually be like a mentor or coach them. I was the hairdresser. So I was like, this isn't the right fit. And somebody actually offered me an opportunity to start working online, and it was not what I thought it was. I really was kind of somebody that was a bit scared to show up online because I'd been bullied from like grade 2 on till I graduated. And I was like really nervous to put myself out there. But over the past 20 years, have done a ton of personal development, counseling, all those things that I needed to build myself up to come to a place where I've healed so that I can help others heal. And so that's why we're having this conversation, I think.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And, I say this about hairdressers all the time. I have a couple of really good friends that are hairdressers. And I said, you guys are like counselors, man, because people get in the chair and and I think because of the closeness and whenever you're touching, and I remember this so I studied massage and aromatherapy and reflexology and all this stuff. And whenever you would touch someone's head, it was such an intimate moment. Yes. That they just want to divulge everything. So it's really interesting that you had that experience that led you into the space that you are now, because it probably set the stage for you in mentoring and coaching and supporting other people quite naturally. Like it was this beautiful container that just said, okay, this is, it's the stepping stones along the journey that we don't sometimes get while we're in it until many years later, right?
I always say that. I'm like, look, you don't know how your life is going to end up. I had no idea it was going to end up here. I had no idea any of this stuff was going to happen. It's the pieces that you follow. It's that intuition. And as humans, we're the only people that ignore that intuition. But if it is screaming at you, if it's like, you have to do this, that thought, that feeling is there for a reason. And so you're absolutely right. Like you have these moments with people where you get to know them and you're in this close space with them. And there is an intuition and a relax that kind of happens in that space where you can have a conversation. And man, I enjoyed those conversations. I enjoyed getting to know people, but I just really wanted to make a bigger impact and be able to help people in a different way. But I couldn't do that until I fixed myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I get that. And when you started to transition, and this I think is a really important point because I hear this from clients all the time. They want to take that leap of faith. They want to take the next step. Some people already have an existing life, and maybe it's okay. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's great, but they're feeling the call to something more or something different. I was actually having a conversation with another soul sister who actually lives in the same building that we landed in here in Mexico.
No way.
We met online. And I messaged her the details of where we are. And she said, I'm living 2 doors down from you. I'm like, what? So her daughter and our daughter are like, to become besties all of a sudden, but her and I were saying yesterday, it's the same thing. She went through this process of having her business. She loved it, but she felt the call for something bigger. And she said it was really hard to take that leap, to set it all aside, to put it aside, completely retire one piece and jump into another. I said, I actually think it's easier to do that than for us. We've been in business 21 years. And there's so many phases of development and growth. And I find it's actually sometimes more challenging to evolve what is, to grow out of what is, because also people expect you to be whatever it is that you're being in that moment. And then when you're like, okay, and now we're going to evolve this, they're like, what now? What are you doing? But I think in this space, can you speak into the courage and the dedication and, like you said, following that intuitive nudge? Because I think people get that intuitive nudge that they're like, I want to grow, I want to create this change, but how do I do that? And how do I step into that without freaking out?
Well, it's like, here's the deal. I'm going to be transparent. It's not always easy, right? Like we have to have courage before we have confidence. We have to have faith over fear. You hear this all the time, but it's the truth. And you talk a lot about a big leap, right? Did you ever read the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks?
I don't know.
Way back in the day.
Maybe. It sounds familiar. So
the reason I want to bring it up is because many, many, many people are on the cusp of a big leap, but they don't do it because it's been ingrained in them not to. And so it talks about, especially if you've got siblings, when you've been raised as a kid and you've got siblings, your parents always try and keep you at the same level, even if you're not, right? Even if you've got different skill sets, instead of saying, hey, you may be really good at playing the piano, you may be really good at math, they're like, well, their math marks are better than yours, right? Or like you need to kind of tone it down because you're going to make so and so feel bad, right? Like especially women. And so, well, I remember reading that book and being like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense to why I've always been kept so small or made to be feel to make. How do I say that? Made to feel small so that I stay on the same playing field as everybody else, but yet I feel that calling. And so like, that's what I want to talk to people about is like, look, there is going to be a time that it is scary, right? Like I cried over closing my salon business and moving into the online space and being able to create really a way better life for my family, right? Like you always have to do what's best for you. I literally have a tattoo on my foot that says, what do you want? To remind me to put myself first, because if you are not no one cares about your dreams as much as you do. Like maybe your partner cares a little bit, like, a little bit less than you, but nobody cares about your dreams. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to do it for you. So you have to put them at the forefront. And it was really interesting because I actually moved down here to Mexico about 1.5 years ago. And my friend Taylor was living down here and we met up and he said, I met you. I'm going to date myself here, but he's like, I met you like 15, 16 years ago. And he's like, Christina, you've always been outgrowing people. You've always been outgrowing jobs and always evolving. And that's not necessarily normal. And I said, well, I don't think that it serves anybody to stay in the same place. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve them either, right? Like if I'm enabling people to stay in the same space and maybe I'm keeping them small because I'm staying, right? And I'm not allowing them to level up and come into their own, right? So when you realize that, something shifts. And you're like, okay, well, I'm willing to act in alignment with who I am. Is it always easy? Do you have to go through challenges? Absolutely. It doesn't just like a free straight line up, right? There's always going to be something that you're going to have to work through. But in that process, you start speeding up opportunity. And you're realizing this right now being in Mexico because it is a different energy field down here. It is a different energy field. And so all of these things, when you have the courage to do something different, you are rewarded. Your risk is the same size as your reward. There's no like little risk, big reward. There is little risk, little challenge, little reward. There is big risk, big challenge, big reward. And so you have to decide where are you on your scale of confidence in your risk?
Yes, I agree with you 100%. I love that you bring that forward because this is exactly what we were feeling when we got down here was that there was all this manifesting energy that we could feel. Like there was all this stuff that was put out into the field. And the moment we got down here, it's like time collapsed on itself. And all of a sudden, whoosh, everything started to happen. And so, right? Like, and it's so fast and it's effortless and it's easy. And I truly believe that that's how life is meant to be for all of us. And we get in our own way at times, right? Like we see it, we feel it. We're like, I want to take this jump, and we keep pulling ourselves back. And I love hearing this about the outgrowing. And I think this is something that we do naturally, right? All of life is constantly growing and evolving. And so to think that our life is going to be like this from, whatever age to whatever age is like, it boggles my mind. I remember when I said to my parents, when I started my business, I said, I only really want to work maybe 3 or 4 days a week. And they're entrepreneurs. And they said, oh yeah, good luck with that, Tara. They're like, you're stepping into becoming a business owner now. Like, good luck with that. And I was like, well, who says I can't? And I think this is the thing that you're bringing forward is that the possibility and the potential to create it however you want. And that's really what you and your family have done is create this freedom experience for all of you.
Yeah. And it wasn't without challenge. It wasn't without risk. It wasn't without mass emotion. Okay. You said you gave me permission to speak freely here. So
yeah, go for it.
So, coming from Canada, I know you understand this, the last couple of years have been really devastating. Like I was going to say interesting, but I mean devastating because I feel like I've lost a piece of me. I was so proud to be Canadian. And Canada isn't the country. Like I'm getting emotional about it, right? Canada isn't the country that I grew up in. The cities are not the cities I grew up in. It's not the same. We have this false sense of safety because we've always lived in a first world country, right? We've got this false sense of safety and it's not safe anymore. And there are things at play that we need to start paying attention to. And I know your audience is awake. Thank you, Lord. Please talk to more people, right? Like you need to talk to people. You need to have honest conversations. What did you just say to me, Terry? You came down here and instantly relationships are forming quickly because you're not having the how's the weather conversation. You're digging into the issues at hand and everybody down here I won't say everybody. I've learned not to say always and everything, right?
Yes.
But like a lot of people down here are awake and are having these bigger conversations. There are a lot of expats down here. There are a lot of immigrants coming from all over the world, not just Canada and the US, all over the world, that are seeing what's going on out there and saying, I don't want to choose that for my family, right? And I understand what it is to uproot everything. I understand what it is to leave your family behind. I understand all of those things because we did it, but it was not without pain. It was not without suffering. It was not without challenge. And I'm telling you that because you have to process that. You have to process the grief of leaving that behind because you are going to do what is best for you, for your family, for your kids, right? Like, I don't know, maybe with COVID didn't happen and we didn't have a kid, maybe we'd still be in Canada. But when I saw what was evolving and what my daughter in her young years, like we know we get 7 years with our kids, right? Like to ingrain into them morals and values and all of these important things, right? And I was like, I'm not letting her have 1 year of that. I'm not letting her have 1 year of that in her upbringing. I'm not letting her be exposed to that. She gets to be a kid, right? We're in this world now where kids are anxious and stressed and depressed and teen suicide is through the roof. I'm like, what the hell? That should never happen. These kids should never be going through any of this. They should be kids, right?
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
That's why we moved to Northern Ontario when I was tuning in because we had just gotten back from Mexico. And I asked the question, I said, what would you have us do now? Because all our stuff was in storage. So we could have easily hopped back on a plane to come down. And when I tuned into them and I tuned into us, I got the clear message, move to Northern Ontario. And I said, okay, well, Northern Ontario is pretty big. I'm like, can you narrow it down? And they pinpointed us right to this amazing Airbnb in the small community. Because I grew up in a very small town too, very small community. There was like 50 people. Closest town is 20 minutes away. Very small. And it was right across the bay from my parents where I grew up. And I felt this strong pull that I needed to be there to help support their journey in this time period, not really knowing what was about to go down, and also for them. And we kept them in this really sacred space. Like they didn't see any of the stuff that was going on out there because I had the exact same thought. I was like, I don't want that going into their consciousness, thinking that the world is a scary place, that people are to be feared, that their bodies are not strong or healthy, or their immune systems aren't able to handle whatever's thrown at us, and all the other stuff that, have gone on with that. And so we made that conscious choice too. And it does come with, and I don't want to say it's not even, I know some people would interpret it as sacrifice, but it wasn't. It was a choice. It was a conscious choice to say, I want this type of lifestyle over this. And can you speak into the courage? Because, moving through and healing and shifting and having self-awareness, there's a reason why you went through that journey prior to that as well.
Yeah.
To almost prepare you for that moment to take the big leaps, right? So how did you move yourself? Yeah, go ahead. And I want to ask like how you moved yourself through some of the big emotions that came up.
I really feel that there was some divine intervention in my life with certain situations and certain things that happened. I remember, and this is such a weird thing to bring up, but it just came to me. I remember I had a long-term boyfriend when I was in Toronto. I went to school for music at Humber. I went to school for vocal jazz there, and I had this long-term boyfriend there. And his family didn't believe in the education system. They're like, it's a crock of whatever, right? And I was like, what? Like I was raised in you have to go to school, you have to do all this stuff. And it was just like a tiny little seed that was planted, and his family was entrepreneurial. Right. And so all of these little seeds, these people that I met along the way, I was like, what about this instead of that? What about this instead of that? And there was just this yearning to do things a little bit differently because I really truly wanted to help people and make people feel good. Really that's at the base of it all. The courage piece. It came from education. It came from meditation. It came from, all the personal development, having serious conversations with my counselor and laughing back and forth about, oh yeah, I need to be more self-responsible in this situation, right? Taking full ownership of my life. When you take full ownership of everything in your life, your marriage, your parenting, your business, your friends, your social circle, right? When you take full ownership of that, how many times do you go out with people? Well, probably not you, but how many times do you actually go out and spend time with people that you don't want to spend time with? You choose not to do that anymore because you protect your energy. And the more I did that, the more I leaned into my intuition and trusted who to spend time with or what to do. the more opportunities showed up and like pointed me in the right direction. And anytime anything bad happened, I didn't like, at first it would take me down for a couple months, right? Like it would take me down for a while. Then it was a couple weeks. Then it was a couple days. Then it was a couple hours. Then I'm like, okay, what's really at the root of how I feel right now? Okay, that's not what I think it is. So we're going to go anyways. And I'm also super blessed to have a partner that we have serious conversations together. We have like the conversations that most couples avoid. We have often, if it makes us feel uncomfortable, if we're on different sides of the coin, we look at things, through each other's lens and try and figure out, okay, what's the next right move for us as a family? What's going to be the best thing? Because there was a lot of, I won't say conflict, but there was a lot of surprise and upset when we decided to move here permanently, because we were only going to come down for 3 to 6 months and just get a balcony view of our life and be like, what do we want to do next? What is our next chapter? And so when we decided to stay, when we decided to sell the house, when we decided to buy a house, there was a lot of pushback. But it was really interesting. The pushback came from, we made a decision that made other people feel uncomfortable, because I think at a very basic instinct, they're like, something isn't right here. And they can't put their finger on it, and they don't want to talk about it. To this day, they don't want to talk about it.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Many people are like this.
I know. And so we had to accept that. We had to accept that with friends. We had to accept that with family. And I want to be very clear. I have no ill will towards that. Like, people are making the best decision that they can at the time, right? They were scared. They were forced. They were manipulated. They had to go through. I could have easily been one of those people had I had a regular job that I needed to pay the bills with to protect my family. I could have easily been one of those people. But I had options, and I'm so grateful for those options. I'm so grateful that I see the world through a bit of a different lens like you, and had a choice to make a different decision. And so I really have a lot of empathy for that situation, because there's still that cognitive dissonance. It's like, what the hell is going on here? I don't know what's happening, but something is shifting, and I don't know what it's going to be. It was really interesting to hear like the things that are starting to perk people up in my hometown, right? Like, I'm from that very small Powell River, right? Well, they're trying to change the name of the town back to a Coast Salish word, a Coast Salish name. They're like literally trying to change the name of the whole town. And so I understand that they want to do that because Powell was part of the residential school system, right? And so they are like, no, this is bad history. It's our history. We need to leave that in place so that we never repeat it again. We need to honor it. We need to teach it to kids at an age appropriate level, right? So that this doesn't happen again, and so that we can all live in harmony. But by doing this, all we're doing is creating more conflict. And there's so much conflict up there for people fighting for a voice, when we should all just honor each other's voices and accept them the way that they are, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think that's part of the trigger. There's something that we've seen so much of, that when the shadow pushes that much, when there's so much that's moving people and creating conflict, and we're going to see a lot more of it, I believe, in the next couple of years. There are different trigger points for everyone. Like, some people got really triggered by the things that were happening to children. Some people got really triggered by what was happening to the body. Some people got really triggered by government systems. And then, of course, there was the convoy in Canada. And like, there was like layer after layer after layer. I said, this is going to be an ongoing snowball across the whole planet, because there's so many different trigger points that will push people hard enough that they go, wait a second, something's not right here. And it lifts their head for a moment. Yeah. And that's the cool part that starts to happen, because from there, all it takes is one question. What's going on here? Something's not right. And then all of a sudden, things start to open up, and the next level and the next piece and the next bit of wisdom comes in, and the next, crossroads. And so it's crazy and it's amazing at the same time. And something that I think is so powerful about, for the experience that you all have gone through as well, is that moving you into a completely different life, into a different lifestyle.
Oh my God, I'm so grateful.
So grateful. And, you and I were saying before that there's a lot of people, like even with us, people considering coming down to Mexico, a lot of people are still afraid. They're like, I'm afraid, like, I hear that there's all these crazy things happening in Mexico. There's so much chaos happening in Mexico. I'm afraid to come to, and I'm like, there's so much chaos almost in every city right now. There's probably more terrible things that could potentially happen to you in Toronto than in Mexico.
Yeah.
And so can you speak into that a little bit in terms of what you've seen and what the reality actually is, right? And I know reality is all, based on each person's perspective, but right, I think that some truth needs to happen here.
Reality is being shaped by media these days, and that's the unfortunate piece of it all. And people don't realize that every piece of it is a lie.
Mm-hmm.
It was so interesting. I know that there's been some conflict the last week because some tourists came over the border and there was an incident where people were killed, and they're saying it's mistaken identity, but that's not necessarily the case. Like, that's not what we hear down here, but that's what's put on the news, right? And so there were other things involved. And my mom always taught me, look, Christina, there are always two sides to the story, and the truth is in the middle. Yeah. So if you're getting that side, there's always a piece that's missing. And so, I was asked this question. I was on News Talk Radio in Vancouver a couple of weeks ago, and he said, about the dangers in the cartel. And I said, well, last summer I flew back to Victoria, and the next day there was a bank robbery where 6 cops were shot. And then I went to Vancouver with my daughter, and we went out for lunch with Ryan's aunt and uncle, who were in their 70s. And I had to pull my daughter out of the restaurant twice because there was a person around with clearly mental health issues. And I was scared of their sporadic behavior, what they were going to say, what they were going to do. I just was not comfortable. My intuition said, take her out of here. And so all I could think in that moment was like, I can't wait to go back to Cabo. I just want to go back to Mexico, because you don't see homelessness. You don't see mental health. You don't see any of those things on the street, drugs on the street. That is not what you see here. That is not the culture here. Right. And so I think that people get really worried about whatever they're seeing on the news. And I'm so happy to have this conversation with you, because I was scared. I was scared to come down here. And I want to tell you, my husband and I have been together for 14 years. We've been spending a few weeks, a few times a year in Mexico that whole time. We actually drove down 10 years ago in a 1985 RV all the way from Vancouver Island all the way down here, camped on the beach for a couple of weeks, went back, right? Like and my husband's driven once since we moved, and we've driven as a family twice. It is the most beautiful drive we've ever seen. People are kind and welcoming and helpful. They're so happy that you're here. Like, it's not what people think. And there's a mob on social media too that'll be like, you need to go. There's like just this angry, negative crap on social media of people that are fearful and in pain and in trauma. And so you get all of this information, but you don't have to live in it. Like, we don't live in it. And so this woman, when we were trying to decide what was going to happen, and because basically what we did is, when they put that restriction in place that you couldn't leave the country at the end of October of 2021, we literally booked a flight that day. Like, we had no idea what we were going to do. No idea. But I was like, we're booking flights because those flights are going to book up. So we booked flights that day, and we figured it out in 2.5 weeks. We packed up our entire house. We're just like, let's just go down. Maybe we'll rent it out on Airbnb, whatever. But we left. And in that moment, I had fear of staying. I had the fear of staying. My pain point was so high in Canada that it was easier for me to get on a plane and leave. And as soon as I got here, all of that dissipated. Now, we haven't had any issues here. Cabo is like a little gem. I'm not going to speak on other areas of Mexico. I know there are problem areas in the border and in Sinaloa, and there are other things going on, right? We live here for a reason. My in-laws have been coming here for 30 years as snowbirds. We've come here multiple times. It is safe. I feel safer walking downtown here than I do walking downtown Victoria, probably downtown Vancouver and Toronto at this point, right? Like, so choose your heart. It's not safe anywhere. Where do you feel safe? Where do you feel your best? You get a choice, so you don't have to sit in it.
That's exactly it. And I think there's so much power in that for people to realize that. Again, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and the person next door to them believes she lives in Mexico. And the woman says, everything down here is going to kill you. You know that, right? Like, everything down here is out to kill you. And she's like, what are you talking about?
It's not
she's
Australia.
Like, there are scorpions, there are deadly snakes, there's all this stuff, right? And I said, okay, I can maybe see that in Costa Rica a little bit, but maybe not so much here in Mexico. But I just think it's so fascinating, because this is where we have to catch ourselves in our manifestations and our conscious creation. Because again, you could take two different people seeing the exact same thing, and one person is focused on everything's amazing and look at the expansion and look at the beauty, and they're going to experience that. right? Maybe a few little ripples, but for the most part, they're going to experience all the expansion. And somebody else will be like, everything here is going to kill you. And then all of a sudden it's like chaos after chaos. And sure enough, that's what happened to this woman. It was like, she saw 5 scorpions in her place. She saw a bunch of weird.
That never happens, by the way, down here.
Exactly. That's what Gabriel and I were saying. We were like, we've lived in Mexico a couple times. And I said, we've never seen anything like that. Right. So it always, the intentional focus.
Yes.
To be able to say, I choose this type of life because this is the life that I want. And I trust and I know that it's going to be incredible. It's going to unfold and I'm going to be supported and everything's going to be amazing. And I love that this is what you're doing for people right now, especially in the business world, of being able to help people see past even things of what they're talking about right now, like the impending doom of, the collapse of the economy, right? Like this is the next thing, so everybody's all stressed out now about this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, when does it end? Right.
It doesn't.
So speak into that a little bit in terms of the work that you're doing with clients now and helping people move through that to know that there are other options. Like you don't have to go down with a sinking ship unless you're choosing to do that, right? There are other ways.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you say that because through my years in the salon, like I worked at before I owned my own salon, I worked at a really busy salon downtown Victoria, like one of the most popular salons. And I remember the owner meeting with me and saying, we're always in the red. And I'm like, well, that's not a very good business model. Like, why are you always in the red? Like, that sounds terrible. And then I watched my friends go through it. And I watched friends open salons and I had mine. And then I one of my color reps who I absolutely loved, like we had this big conversation. She's like, there's no money in the salon industry anymore. So what am I going to do? Stick with that job? Like just keep sticking with that job and not be able to leverage my time and have to work 80 hours a week because our income hasn't kept up with our cost of living, obviously. Right. Yeah. So like, what am I going to do to fix this? And you can either sit in it and stay safe because you know how to do this career, or you can realize what's in front of you and evolve. And I realize if we don't evolve right now, we're going to go broke. And I don't want to be broke. I don't want that lifestyle for my family. I can't make a massive impact if I don't have money. Money is a magnifier for who you are. It is not a negative thing. It can be an extremely positive thing. And so I want to show people that, and I want to work with people who want to make an impact. And so in business right now, entrepreneurs are finicky, right? They always have great ideas. They're terrible closers, like they're terrible finishers, right? But they have all these ideas and they have all these projects. And then a recession happens and they take it personally. And they're like, what am I doing wrong? Oh my God, the sky is falling. And I'm like, guys, it's a debt cycle. Like this is normal life. Like it's normal to go through all of this. And so in times of recession, you either have to pivot or you have to double down on the work that you're doing, right? Like you have to do one of those two things to get a similar result or even try and grow. Now, what most people are not realizing as they're focusing on the doom and gloom of the recession, they're not focusing on a massive redistribution of wealth that's going to happen right now that they could be a part of if they became a problem solver. And people would think, well, what do you mean become a problem solver? And it's just like, look, where you are in your business now and where you could be going is solved in this little middle period that could catapult you to the next level of being a leader in your industry, right? And be somebody that is actually of true service and true value. What I see people doing right now is panic selling and selling as much as they can right now. Like I've got 5 different courses going on. I'm going to help you and you and you and you and you, right? No. Okay. This is what needs to happen. You need to put the people around you that you are serving, you need to put their results way ahead of your paycheck, way ahead of what you're selling, way ahead of what you offer people. And you have to start focusing on the results of the people around you, because when you do that, when you actually help people through it, instead of saying you're going to help people through it, or I'm going to be the one. Okay, no, how about they're the hero of their own journey? This in healing, this in coaching, that we can't do anything for other people, but it's enabling them and believing in them and helping them along the way so that we can move through all of this together, so that we can build big business, so that we can live the life of our dreams. And so many people are just like cut off right now because they've been beaten and battered down from the last couple of years, and they don't realize that they have a choice. And I got to tell you, when I hit my rock bottom, when I remember in August, right? It was August 2021. I was standing in my mom's backyard in Powell River. I'd gone home. My sister was about to have a baby. I'd had 2 miscarriages that year with very little care from anybody because of COVID, like no in person, no nothing. I had to go through it all by myself. And I was like, look, I'm not
I would have known
okay.
you then. I wish I would have known you then. I'm like, I would have been there. I so would have been there for you. Oh my gosh. Oh.
But you know what? Those are the pieces. Those are the pieces that strengthen us. Those are the pieces that are like, I am no longer going to stand for this or to be treated like this, or, you know, and so it was a pivot, and I appreciate that, Tara.
Yeah, I've been through it. I've been through it myself too. So I know, like,
and so many women have, and they don't talk about it. And so I had this postpartum, and I had all the anxiety of the world. And I was like, this is not how I want to live. And I was like,
and you're a mom, and you're a mama too.
Yes.
On top of, right. So all of that. Yeah, no, I get it.
I'm just like, I'm not okay. And I remember standing in her backyard, just bursting into tears. And I'm like, I am not okay. I'm a strong person. I've got a lot going on. I can handle this, but I'm not okay. And I think that was also a moment for Ryan too, to be like, oh God, like she's not handling this as well as I thought she was. And so when the opportunity came up to come here, it was one of those things that he's like, we got to go. We got to do something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because I was speaking about this exactly, like doing something different outside of the comfort zone. Because when we stay in the regular and the usual and what we call normal, it's even Aria said it the other day. We were back home and she goes, you know, Mom, I don't think we're meant to live in winter all the time.
No, we're not.
Where did all the other animals and birds go? I said, well, half of them are hibernating and escaping the winter. I said, the other half fled and they all migrated down south, right? Like even the innocence and the wisdom of a little one, right? Like, I don't think we're meant to, you know? And I think that there's such an expansion that happens, and the harmonics, like we've been talking a lot about harmony and creating harmonization in our life, and how harmonization starts to occur is, it's coming from us. There's a signal, there's a frequency, there's an emanation, there's a light, there's an energy, whatever people want to call it. It emanates from us. And so we have to either make radical changes in our life or do the internal work. And when you do both together, right, or you're working on both, it's powerful, like so powerful.
It is next level. And like you said, you got down here and it was like time was compressed and all of a sudden everything happened at once. And so we were in a bit of trauma while we were adjusting to our life down here. But as soon as we closed that chapter and got rid, we got rid of our storage and everything, we came back down in September of this year. Everything shifted. I started working with different mentors, right? I started really taking my business seriously and how I was going to show up for people, because before I was scared. Before I was very little, Christina, and was like, I can help you. I know I can help you. And now I'm like, I can help you. Like, let's go. We got to go. Now is the time. Don't wait. Right. And so it took that little shift. But what's been so cool is having people in my life like you, and I've got a few team members, I call them, like my little circle of people that keep me on track. And what's cool about it is when you stay in that alignment, when you are open to new relationships and opportunities, all of these things show up. And so now we moved down here. My husband is working in real estate and has so many different leads that he's meeting all these new people. Amazing. My business is taking off. We're getting, press that I couldn't pay for the exposure. And now I get to write with the Mexico News Daily and be, somebody that gets to help people migrate down here, and tell our story. Absolutely. so people have confidence, because, that's what I was going to tie it back into, is that I almost didn't come down here because I was so scared at the time, because we had been conditioned and all of this dark cloud had been put on us from COVID. But my friend Lori had come down 2 weeks prior. And so I said, hey, can I call you? And so I called her and I said, is it okay to fly to Mexico? Were you guys okay? I was so nervous. And I'm a huge traveler, by the way. I was so weird, right? Yes. And so I was like, is it okay? And she's like, oh my God, Christina, you have to go. Everything is normal there. You just have to go and have a really good time and just realize. And so she was the gift that gave me the confidence to come. I hope I am the gift, or you are the gift to somebody that gives them the confidence to take that next step and say, you know what, it's not as scary. I don't have to worry about the cartel every day. I don't have to worry about the bad things that are going to happen. If you are creating your life intentionally, guess what? All the good things will show up, and the opportunities and the relationships and connections. And that will happen very, very quickly down here, because there's a lot of like-minded thinkers.
Yeah. And I think because the energy, like you said, that thickness isn't here, not in the same way.
Right.
And so that creates an open space, and it's almost like having the space match your vibration, right? This is what I want. This is the lifestyle I want. And you're like, okay. And this space is conducive to that. And that can be many different places for different people. And I think it's fantastic when we start to align ourselves and make those moves. And so is there anything else that you feel called in this moment to share with the community about harmonization, taking the big steps and the big leaps and not being afraid?
You know, you will be so rewarded for your courage. You'll be rewarded to be a leader, and the world needs leaders right now. You know, I always say, be bold, be brave, be disruptive. You are capable of things far beyond your wildest dreams if you just have the courage to go for it. And so I hope that somebody listening to this today had, you know, that little step that they needed, that little inkling to move forward. You know, if you want to have a bigger conversation, we've been down here for a year and a half. Tara, you gave me permission for people to be able to reach out to me on social media. You know, I'm at the Christina Whiteley on TikTok, on Instagram, Christina Whiteley on Facebook. You know, I'd be more than happy to have you in my Unbreakable Business Challenge at the end of the month, because I know that it'll be something that'll help entrepreneurs move through this really, really hard time by finding purpose and passion in what they do, and then creating something that nobody can take from you.
I love that so much. I think that that's fantastic. And it's so needed right now. It's so needed right now because it's going to grow people on every level, personally, professionally. Yeah. And we need more people to stay rising and afloat than sinking.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's
bring
people with us, my friend.
I know. Let's have fun. And I've been needing to tell you, I was like, this is why your hair always looks fantastic now. It all makes sense. It just all makes sense.
The joy, right? And it's so funny that you mentioned my hair, because I have had dark hair, like dark, like almost black hair. I'll show you a picture of me and my kiddo. Can you see that?
Oh my gosh.
I've had dark hair for 15 years. And then I got down here and I was like, the sun, I can't keep it dark. This is my natural color. I'm like, I'm just rocking it. Let's go.
I love it. Total beach babe.
Thank you very much.
That's what Ari and I call each other. We're like, you're such a beach babe.
Beach babe. I love it. Well, I am so happy that you're down here being a beach babe, and I hope to see you very, very soon. I know that our worlds will collide in person very soon.
I agree. I feel that too. Thank you so much for being here. I love you. I appreciate you. And thank you everybody for being here as well. I can't wait to have another harmonizing conversation with you very, very soon.
Thank you so much for joining us today on another episode of the Rising Consciousness Show. For more high vibration conversations, meditations, energy activations, and tips and tools on creating your most exceptional life, we lovingly invite you to connect with us at academyoflight.ca. The website is www.academyoflight.ca. It is time to create your heaven on earth experience, and we look forward to sharing this beautiful journey with you.
You're listening to Rising Consciousness, yeah.
Woo!
Woo!